here. Great. So afternoon, everybody. Let me just pull up my agenda quickly. But welcome to the October 8th, 2020 regular virtual board meeting of the Urban Redevelopment Authority. It's good to see you all. And our first order of business, I think I'm just going to do approval of minutes first and then go to public comment. We got to pull that up still. So is there a motion to approve the board meeting minutes from last month, September 10th meeting?
So move.
Second.
Motion seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. The minutes are approved. Also, roll call is not necessary because the record will show that all 5 board members are present. And we do have a couple items of public comment that came in. So one is from Megan Confer-Hammond, who's the interim executive director of the Fair Housing Partnership of Greater Pittsburgh, and writes, today I'm commenting on item 7A, the Hunt Armory. I understand the process in which the reuse of the Hunt Armory was determined. The Hunt Armory was a wonderful opportunity to provide an affordable housing option to Pittsburgh's Black and brown families and in a neighborhood historically unavailable to all of Pittsburgh. In fact, Shadyside, where the Hunt Armory is located, has a 4.7% Black population in the context of the city's 23.2% Black alone population based on census data. And so Fair Housing Partnership is asking URA to evaluate its community feedback format with a focus on accounting for and addressing not in my backyard NIMBYism, which is an ongoing basis for pushing against affordable housing development. Otherwise, NIMBYism will result in the URA deepening the city's current racial residential segregation. The second comment is actually our monthly progress report from the Lower Hill CSIP Executive Management Committee, or EMC, which was dated October 8th. So that's just today, actually, so it should be pretty up to date. And it says, during these challenging times of COVID, the EMC board is working diligently with all Lower Hill stakeholders and the community to achieve the goals of the CSIP. At this time, however, best efforts have not been demonstrated. Here are some of the EMC's challenges. One, community reinvestment plan. Since May, the EMC has been waiting to receive FNB and PAR's counteroffer to the community reinvestment plan for Block G1. 5 months have elapsed, still spent pending waiting on the counteroffer. Second area is stopgap protection. It says on August 21st, the EMC requested from PAR a stopgap protection that would require PAR, before any takedown proceedings, to give the EMC 8 weeks to consider proposed community benefits, specifically the community reinvestment plan. EMC is waiting on PAR's written response. Kevin Ackland did a verbal commitment, still pending, again with no update. Redevelopment Assistance Capital Program, or RACPs. FMB, URA, and PAR have applied for Redevelopment Assistance Capital Program funding. Federal, state, and local funds were jointly applied for with CDC or CDEs and our other Hill District organizations. Most EMC board members were not aware of the submissions, and no community organization was invited to jointly apply, which is in violation of the CSIP. The EMC has invited FMB to engage in further discussion, still pending response to the meeting invite. And the last area is the I-579 CAT project, which says the Sports and Exhibition Authority just informed us of the I-579 minority participation. Total workers on the site have ranged between 20 to 40, with construction by Joseph B. Fay Company. Minority participation has averaged between 12 to 14%. It has not been determined if any of the 12 to 14% of minority workers are Hill District residents. Women participation has averaged between 0 to 5%. 5 contracts were issued to WBE or DBE firms, none of which were Black owned, nor from the Hill District. Contracts related to the I-579 CAT project are issued by PennDOT. The EMC is committed to assuring the implementation of the CSIP and a full disclosure to the Urban Redevelopment Authority staff and board of directors such that thoughtful and informed discussions that support our end goal can be made. So those are, just as a reminder, those are updates we've been getting every month, and actually incredibly helpful to the board as we will be evaluating whether sufficient efforts were made to reach agreement on CSIP goals, and whether the goals already outlined in the CSIP have been met, which I would note include higher levels of participation for minority and women-owned businesses and minority and women workers than what were just described in that update. Is there any other public comment that I'm missing?
No, that's it for public comment. There are a few questions that have popped up in the Q&A from Ann Belser regarding item 7A. So I don't know if you would prefer to address that when that item comes up, or if you'd prefer to address it now.
Yeah, I think I don't see. Let me pull it up, but so 7A, which is the Hunt Armory, what's happening with the development of the building, and if after 3 years of the latest plan and 5 years of the first rate proposal, there is still a plan going forward. I think it probably makes sense to discuss that when we get to that agenda item, because I think the board probably is going to want also an update on where the overall development is, as we're asked to spend money to make sure the roof doesn't implode.
Okay.
And I think I would just add, and maybe you can, I don't know, provide additional details if necessary on this, but in terms of the RCAP request from the Lower Hill, there were multiple RCAP requests. The only one the URA is actually involved in is a $3 million RCAP request that we had previously committed to making to provide funds for the parking garage that we're obligated to build. The other RCAP requests that were submitted were done without our involvement, or I think even knowledge.
That is correct.
Yeah. Okay. So moving on, if there's no more public comment, to the dashboards, starting with the RFPs and RFQs. Any announcements there?
So we have one announcement there. It's an Altridra accounting services contract. I believe that Emily Mitchell will walk us through this item.
Actually, it'll be me. This is Nick Fedorek, the manager of planning and development. So this is just a very simple administrative RFP. Altridra is the East Liberty Transit Revitalization Investment District Revitalization Authority. It's a separate public authority from the URA, but it's affiliated. A lot of URA staff time goes into admin and operations for Altridra, including administration of some of the Altridra funding. We're releasing an RFP for general accounting services that includes things like invoice processing, cash flow management, and other standard accounting services for the Altridra organization. If you're interested in applying, the information is on the website at ura.org in the RFP section.
Thank you. Next, we have an announcement around the 2018-19 annual report.
Yes. So I will take this one, Sam. Very excited to announce that the URA's 2018-2019 annual report has been released. It encompasses all of the activity that the URA has advanced over the course of those 2 years. It highlights how we are building a more inclusive city by trying to create economic opportunities for all. The board is well aware that this has been a significant time of transition for the organization. So you will see a welcome from a familiar face, Robin Rubenstein, and the end of the book will close out with my message at the end of the year, which announced the arrival of Greg Flistrom as the URA's executive director. And so a lot of the work encompassed in the report highlights how we've safeguarded residents and tried to create new home ownership opportunities across the city, being inclusive around wealth building and creative entrepreneurship programs, breaking down barriers to work with the URA in a way that incorporates community and nonprofit participation, as well as MBE, WBE participation. And you will see a pivot where we begin to invest in neighborhood scale projects that in a way that allows neighborhood groups to go from vision to action. So that's a lot of the Neighborhood Initiatives Fund work that's been going on over the past couple of years. So if you'd like to read the full report, you can find it on the website at www.ura.org/pages annual reports. And it's also available in our newsletter this month, which went out this morning.
That's great. Thanks, Diamante. Next
I'd
slide.
like to very quickly thank Dana Bohens. She is responsible for the beautiful cover and all of the beautiful graphics. She and a few team members worked very hard to compile this year's report, and it's been very well done. So thank you, Dana, and to those who've worked on the annual report.
Great.
Hi, good afternoon. Jennifer Wilhelm, the Director of Commercial Lending. I am excited to show our production thus far during the year. We continue to close on loans. I want to point out a few things that have changed. So since we approved our new minority loan fund program last month, we have been getting applications. It's not listed on here yet because none of them have closed, but we are currently processing 30 applications in underwriting, and 3 have been approved thus far. So next month, you will start to see a breakdown where we will show those loans that have closed under the minority loan program. You'll see here those that have closed under the micro loan fund program, and then others. So we're going to start showing a little bit more specific data. And if you'd like to see additional information or statistics, I'm happy to include that as well. We are highlighting 2 of our businesses this month, Manicure, which from the name you may assume is a nail salon, and it is, in Lawrenceville. We're very excited about this one. She received a $20,000 microloan. Catherine is a great entrepreneur, and she's up and running and doing very well. Another exciting investment that we made, a $150,000 loan to Fig and Ash, a restaurant on the north side that took over a building that was abandoned for many years, and now it is quite beautiful. They have been open for lunch and just opened for dinner last night, and so they are accepting reservations, and they are an American-European fusion. So if that speaks to you, please check it out.
Thanks. The housing lending dashboard.
Yes, hi, thank you. Yeah, so every month I'm here usually talking about our housing stabilization program, our rental assistance program, since that's been, a big focus since COVID. And today I thought we would talk about some of the other housing lending programs that the URA does, so you can see, what the rest of the staff has been really busy at doing. So this chart represents the housing development loans. So whether that be rental developments or for sale housing developments that have closed since COVID. So this is what the staff has been working on remotely. You can see, I think it's about a total of 14 or 15 projects listed here that total 187 units for a total of $4.2 million of development financing to create those 187 units that have all closed and started construction since COVID has hit. And then the next slide will show some of our other consumer programs. So in addition to the housing stabilization program, we have several other programs, and I'm going to pass it over to Jeremy Carter, the manager of these programs, to walk you through that.
Thanks, Jessica. We've been very busy with our down payment and closing cost program with record low mortgage rates and a hot home buyer market. We were averaging closing about 8 to 10 loans, down payment closing cost loans a month. Last month we closed 17, so we are definitely seeing that speed up a little bit. With our homeowner assistance program, we've been very busy. In fact, in August, we did have to do a temporary pause on accepting applications. As you'll see in this chart, we have 68 projects in process, 54 we've already completed in the last year. And we have quite a large waiting list and people who have applied that we need additional funding for. But so we are busy ramping up that program and trying to get through the wait list as soon as we can. Additionally, we are still seeing an increase in our home accessibility program for independents. This program provides grants to homeowners and renters to do home modifications to increase their accessibility and independence to stay in place. So we have completed 60 of those projects and have 15 more, or actually about 25 more on the list. And so that program has also experienced an uptick.
Okay. Any questions from the board? No. All right. Thanks. And recap of the sidewalk sales program.
So this is Josette Fitzgibbons from the Business Solutions Unit. This is just kind of a recap of round 1 and then announcing of round 2 is open. For round 1, we did 15 grants to business district groups in 14 different neighborhoods. They ranged from the groups did COVID safe sidewalk sales. They purchased equipment to enable outdoor dining. They did individual grants to individual businesses. A couple of districts actually distributed COVID packs of approved hand sanitizer and cleaning products. And one neighborhood, Lawrenceville, actually did signage throughout the neighborhood for social distancing and masking and such. We touched about 450 businesses with this program throughout the 14 neighborhoods. So I think it was pretty successful. We're getting ready to open round 2, which will open on Tuesday. We're going to do 14 grants of up to $1,500 to groups at this point. We're also considering a slight change to the name for the fall of calling it Sidewalk Sales / Safe Sales, so that it's not just getting into the cold weather months, but also helping businesses to maybe do some bulk purchasing around making their inside safer, you know, filters for air systems or something like that. So that'll launch next week. And it was really successful. The summer round was really successful. So we hope to have the same level of success for the cold weather round. Questions?
I just want to say thank you for being so innovative in this space. I know a lot of the restaurants, small businesses that call us have been super grateful to the assistance that the URA has given, trying to either help them get outside, get dining, and as we get to the cold weather months, appreciate in advance your ability to think creatively on how businesses can continue to operate, but operate safely. So thank you, Josette.
Thank you.
Great. I think that's all of the announcements, huh? Feels like that was quicker than normal. So now we're going to move on to the voting agenda, beginning in residential lending and investments. And I know for the first one, the TWG project, I know there are some potential issues with this one. So it makes sense. Jessica, do you want to just describe the project first and what's being asked, and we can kind of go through what some of the challenges here are?
Sure, absolutely. So this is the connection at Southside Works, and you can see this building here. It is a building that is under construction right now. It's about 45 units, 45% complete with the construction. It is a 280 unit apartment building, 10% of those units will be affordable at 50% area median income or below. The remainder is market rate, and TWG is the developer. They are from Indiana. In addition to the 280 unit building, they're building a 188 parking space garage. You can see some facts here on this slide along with the map of where it's located. It's located, of course, in the South Side and the South Side Works complex. So the URA owned the land for this site. They sold it to TWG in March of 2019 for them to start construction. At the time we sold it, there was no public subsidy in this development, and TWG was willingly doing 10% of the units at 50% area median income without any public subsidy. So they started construction soon after they closed in March 2019, and when they started digging, they found a lot of concrete underneath the surface, and they had to start actually excavating the concrete out. And they actually use something called hydraulic hammers. I've never even heard of that before. But in order to remove all the steel and concrete, it cost about $4 million that they were not anticipating. And the developers, they started paying for it themselves with their own financing, their own cash to start to cover it. And then it got to be quite a lot of costs, and it's actually a little more than $4 million with some additional costs that were related to just delays in the project because they did have to halt for a while during the beginning of COVID. So they came to the URA and they asked us if we could help the situation by providing a $1.5 million loan. And this is a loan, it's hard debt, not soft debt. This isn't a low-income housing tax credit deal that doesn't have cash flow to pay. They're asking for it to be short-term, so really just to get them through the remaining construction of the building. 4% interest rate, and the term is would be approximately 36 months. The reason we don't know it specifically is because we will tie it to the term that's remaining on the bank's first mortgage construction loan, which has about 36 months left. And for half of that, for the first 18 months, they're asking us to go interest only because they will not have tenants in the building while they're constructing it to be able to pay the debt service. But then once the tenants are in, they will start paying principal and interest. The amortization is 20 years. For those watching that aren't bankers, amortization means that the monthly payment will be based on taking 20 years times 12 months, so 240 months, and taking the 1.5 divided by the 240 months. That's how much they pay monthly, but they'll only pay it for a term of about 3 years. And at that point, that means there'll be a balloon payment. So they will then need to refinance us out, and they have to refinance their first mortgage out at that time anyhow. So that's why, from the perspective of that, they'll just refinance both of us out at the same time, and we'll get paid back in full at that point. When we issued the board agenda item, we had stated that, it went to loan review because we issued the board agenda item a couple of days ago. Our loan review meeting was yesterday. Our loan review committee consists of bankers, realtors, lawyers, community developers that routinely review our loans, and provide advice. And their recommendation for this loan was to make sure that we're able to secure a mortgage, which is something that the URA always does. In this particular situation, however, this is a $60 million development, and about 13 or 14 million of it is equity, coming from equity investors that TWG works with. And those equity investors are a little leery to take out more debt that is ahead of them. So TWG had approached the URA and said, URA, would you feel comfortable, since this is just a short-term loan, instead of recording a mortgage, looking at personal and corporate guarantees? And we said we would prefer a mortgage, but we would look into that. Our loan review committee is recommending that we hold strong on the mortgage. So we have since talked to TWG, and they are taking that request back to their investors. We had also mentioned to them that potentially we could look at, mortgaging something else, another property that they have, but we do need a mortgage. So what I would recommend for today, if the board feels comfortable voting for this action, that it be subject to us working this collateral situation out and taking it back in front of our real estate loan review committee, which will meet the first Wednesday of November. Are there any questions?
Yeah, Sam?
Yes.
Go ahead, Councilman.
One, thank you, Jessica, for the due diligence. One, I agree with you. We should absolutely be securing the mortgage. But if you're not going to have that done until, at a minimum, the first week of November, I would actually prefer holding this until you have completed that process and maybe voting on it that second week in November. I agree.
It's fine with me. That makes sense to me. I think we ought to make sure that this deal is done right before we advance it. This is, I would just sort of note as a side note, Jessica went through this a little bit, but when these guys first came to the board to purchase the land, which was just a straight market rate land purchase, the board back in 2018 sort of sent it back to them and said, this is a part of the city where we think we need to focus on developing more affordable housing. They came back to the staff and the board with 10% of the units being affordable below 50% AMI, again with no public subsidy in the deal, which is frankly, if you're building on public land and then going to come back to us for a public loan, the right thing. We need the developer to behave responsibly throughout this entire process.
Sam, to that point, I was going to add just a question to Jessica and her team. It's public land. They're getting a public loan. While I appreciate, them having the foresight and ability to consider including affordable housing within their deal without us asking, if, again, it's public land and they're asking for a public loan, can we push them on more affordability over the 10% that they've initially asked for? Or they've initially said that they would allocate?
I can ask. I don't know if I have asked that. They are working with equity investors, so I'm sure they will have to take that request back to their equity investors, and we would have to relook at the cash flow. But that is something I can ask for. Just me, but I absolutely would appreciate it. I think in a space like that, that's incredibly opportunity rich. While again, I think it's incredible that they're already making those considerations without us having to push. But if we can push, it doesn't hurt.
Okay. So if our inclination here is to wait, the board's inclination here is to wait for the loan to be fully secured. Do we need a motion to hold this, or will we just skip it and put it back on the agenda in November?
Let's do a motion.
Yeah, Director, this is Nathan. I was going to say, I think a motion would be most appropriate.
Okay, so I'd entertain a motion to hold for a month.
So move.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Jessica, thanks again for being, so diligent as always.
Sure, we will be back next month to report out and maybe with a motion. Okay, next up is North Negley Residences, LP 327 North Negley Avenue. And this one you have seen, I think it was back in April. I came in front of the board in April for a loan. You see the picture of the building. This is the rotunda of the building that was the Urban League Charter School. It was a synagogue, and then it was the Urban League Charter School. in the border there of Garfield and East Liberty. The part next to it is the part that's actually being turned into housing. It's a 2-story addition of 45 units. 38 of them are affordable and 7 of them are market rate. They have an allocation of low-income housing tax credits. When we came, it's Catalyst Communities. Mike Polite is the developer. When we came to the board in April, we asked for 2 loans totaling $1 million, $414,770 of a rental housing development improvement program loan, and $585,330 of a HOF rental gap program loan. They got a little bit delayed closing, primarily due to COVID. And then in July, I came in front of the board and asked to combine those 2 programs together because they're in essence one program. It's our rental development program. We only had 2 programs because the sources were different. We created a separate program with HOF. So in July, the board has a resolution combining those 2 programs together, but we had received approval prior to July. So what I'm here to ask for today is 2 things. One is to just amend the prior resolutions to give them 1 rental gap program loan under the prior amount of $1 million, which is the total of those 2 loans that we had given them before. We had never closed on the loans yet. So to change it to a rental gap program, $1 million. And then I'm also asking for authorization to increase the total by $225,000. And the reason for that really is because of the COVID delays. Their construction pricing did increase, and their equity pricing that they're getting from their equity provider did go down. And that created over a $600,000 gap. They have an additional request of $225,000 pending at the Housing Authority right now. And then the developer, Catalyst Communities, is going to defer their fee to cover the remainder of the gap. So I'm here today to ask for the combining of the programs and also the increase. So it'll be a total of a $1.225 million loan. It will be repaid by cash flow. It is a low-income housing tax credit development, and it's anticipated that the development will close in this calendar year. I think Mike Polite from the development entity is on the line. Mike, are you there?
I am.
Hi, Mike. Would you like to address the board?
Well, I think you did a great job of summarizing. Essentially, we are at the tail end, pushing the project to get to closing this year. There's the resources that you mentioned that you all are considering today. As you said, the Housing Authority. We're also working the final pieces with the Pennsylvania Housing Finance Agency. Essentially, lumber and other materials spiked as a result of, what we're all going through now. And then the reality also of the way the workers work, literally the way the number of people who can be involved at any particular point in time. So those things led to an increase in costs. We don't have additional sources. Our project is capped by the 9% tax credit award. And so we're essentially keeping the deal alive. We've invested significant money to move it to this point. So we appreciate the support that's out there. Very important deal. We're engaged with the neighborhood totally. We're working with Bloomfield Garfield Corporation on preparing a plan for the rotunda. So looking forward at some point to come back to talk to you about that, just so you know what's going on. But thank you.
Thanks, Mike. Are there any questions?
No? Okay. If there are no questions or concerns or comments, then I think a motion to approve would be in order. This is important development of affordable housing and a site that has really just been sitting there for years like this.
I'll move.
Second.
Motion and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And then we got one more thing. This short meeting agenda today. All right. So Hunt Armory, the roof is really messed up. And this, I think probably
Leah Matthews will walk us through this one, Sam.
Great. I think, Diamante, I think it's also just worth kind of like a quick briefing to the board and the public on the status of the overall project while we're doing this, just because I think that'll answer Ann's question to a degree, and this is one that's been on our agenda for a long time.
Yes.
Hello, this is Leah Matthews. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead, Leah. Go ahead. Floor is yours.
No, Greg, go ahead. I'm sure you can explain the status more better than I could.
Well, I was just going to say, just to open up the kind of preface Leah's comments, just to answer the question that the questioner had at the outset. Yes, the concept is still to do an ice rink here. The project may be tweaked a little bit. The developer entity is actually looking at a couple of different options to better match the sources of available funds to the vision and to assure the, I guess you might call it the cash flow ability, if that's a term, of the project. So, but the core of the main focus of the project is still an ice rink. It may change in configuration in terms of some of the elements, but that is still is the driving force behind the project. And with that, I'll turn over to Leah to talk about the roof.
Okay. Yes, recently it's been determined that some work does need to be done on the roof so that it does not fall in, especially with this upcoming winter. So we are seeking authorization to enter into an agreement with Hoffman and Associates in the amount up to $105,000 for design services for phase 1 roof and building shell rehabilitation for the Hunt Armory building. We are also seeking authorization to commit up to $500,000 of 2019 PAYGO funds or other funds, and it would be required, these funds would be used for our RACP match to pay for the roof work that we'll need done. And with this, we're also seeking authorization to front up to $3 million from the general fund to bridge that same RACP grant for the roof and the general Hunt Armory project. Here I have with me today Robert Hoffman, and he's going to get into the conditions of the roof.
Rob, you there?
I saw he was on.
Sorry, Leah, I didn't.
We can hear you now. Go ahead.
Okay, here we go.
Are you there? Maybe, maybe not.
Let's see.
You know, while we're waiting for Rob to get connected, I'll say that, again, to the questioner's specific question about the $3 million, it's just important to emphasize that it's up to $3 million. At this point, we have no idea how much the roof is going to cost to repair. The part of Rob's work, which he will describe, is to actually go in and do kind of a triage of the roof situation to understand kind of what's going to need to be done in order to stabilize it. So it could be up to that amount, but it could be far less than that amount too. I think the important thing is we want to make sure that that any repair that we do here is a value-added investment. We're not just doing a temporary fix that's going to have to be ripped apart and redone at some point. So Rob's job is ready to come in and try to diagnose the issue and tell us what needs to be done from a structure, from a stabilization standpoint, but also to get the roof fixed in a way that preserves the historic preservation tax credits that this project is eligible for.
So the other, I think, important part of the background here to note for everybody is that we the URA acquired this property back in, I think, December of last year from the state. because the state was getting to the point where they were close to putting the building out to market and selling it basically to the highest bidder. This project, this sort of the plan to turn it into the ice rink with a parking garage and an office building has been in place for quite some time, but not materialized enough funding to really move forward as quickly or aggressively as anybody hoped. The state was getting to the point where they were ready to sort of pull the plug and put it out to bid and sell it. We decided as a board last December to acquire the project so that we could continue to try to see this particular design through to its fruition, and more importantly, be in control of the asset so that if that doesn't happen, we can decide what is in the sort of best interest of the city of Pittsburgh as an alternate plan for the site. And that certainly could involve, as Megan suggested, some affordable housing in Shadyside. It could involve any number of things. But if we hadn't acquired it, that wouldn't have been a possibility, nor would it really have been a possibility to try to see through to fruition the plan that the community kind of came forward and supported a couple of years ago or several years ago at this point. However, that obviously had some risks involved. Acquiring an old building carries risks. One of the risks was that we were going to have carrying costs, and now we're seeing the impact of that and having to repair the roof. Just to clarify also, so we have a $3 million RCAP. So the $3 million that we're being asked to vote on is just to bridge between when we have to begin spending money to replace the roof and when we get the money from the state. And the other $500,000 is pay-go money. So most of the expense of this will actually be paid for by the RCAP, correct? By the state?
That's correct.
Okay, Rob, back on yet?
I'm here.
There you are. All right.
Yeah, I have limited internet access, so I better go quickly here. So Basically about 2 years ago, maybe 3 years ago, we did some evaluations working with Mercedes. I'm thinking of the Lammer School because I'm working on that, and the challenge has been always maintaining these roofs through winter, and the freeze-thaw cycles can do damage very quickly to a roof once it starts to exhibit damage like this. So in this case, the rubber roof membrane, as you can see in that drone photograph, started to peel back probably during a thunderstorm a few years back, and it just kept peeling back. That yellow area that you see there is fiberglass, and underneath that is a concrete deck that's probably 6 to 8 inches thick, which you can see behind me in my photograph, and that concrete deck is now being exposed to water and freeze thaw. So we're now into a stage where we're going to start to see significant structural damage to the building if we don't get it under control. So looking at the situation with the URA staff and with the developer and contractors, we recommend a first stage of triage. Let's get this roof patched up and keep the water from leaking in again through this winter. So that's phase one. In the same breath, I need to also talk about the terracotta cornice, as you can see in that other photograph, which is leaning down there a little bit. We identified this a couple of years ago, and again, the freeze-thaw cycles of water infiltration could create a hazard in that situation. So we're proposing to net that this winter and get that safe. Right now it's covered in vines, which have to be removed. So that's the basic extent of what we call phase one. The larger project has to do with when you're going to spend the money on this building. You've got a certain amount of investment you have to make in the shell, and a lot of that involves historic tax credits. This is an historic building locally, so we also have to go through HRC, and that all takes time to figure out, and we want to do this so we're not wasting money on something that we tear out later. So this really becomes roof and masonry repair in a permanent manner to replace all that rubber roof there, which is about 60,000 square feet, all the flashing, all the insulation, and we have to do this with in mind that the concrete also contains asbestos, unfortunately, so we have to work around that and contain it. So it's a complicated little project, as you can see by that diagram of where the damage already exists, and we try to get it stabilized, under control, and then have a permanent renovation next year.
Okay. Questions from the board? Anything else to add? I mean, clearly we got to get the roof under control. We want to be going through the winter with the significant asset we just acquired last year falling apart. So let's get this moving. I think it might make sense at some point in the near future to arrange a briefing for the board just on the overall status of this project also. I know there was a point at which sort of pre-COVID, it looked like this thing was developing some momentum and might actually, you know, get to a point where it's really moving forward in 2020. You know, and I think that COVID has impacted that like it has a lot of projects, but, you know, we do need a plan for this. And I know that the staff has been working really hard on it, and Greg's been working really hard on it. It probably makes sense to sometime in the next month or two, get a briefing together for the board so that everybody's aware of where we are with this.
Yeah, we can definitely do
that. The close of 2020.
Yeah. Okay. If there are no other questions or comments, then a motion would be in order.
So move. Second.
Any further discussion? No? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Thank you. Thanks, Leah. Thanks, Rob. And then we're on to Agenda B. Anything in particular to note in Agenda B this month?
I don't believe that there's anything notable. I believe the board can adopt Agenda B in totality, but if there is something that the board would like to discuss, we are happy to do so. It's pretty much fixing things on the back end, administrative stuff.
A couple of things there.
Motion to approve Agenda B in its entirety.
Second.
Motion and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. There is one remaining question in the Q&A about the abandoned apartment buildings across the street from the old synagogue on Nigley Avenue. I don't think we own those, do we?
No, we don't own them.
Yeah. So unfortunately, we haven't acquired that property. Not sure who the owner is. So would be good for there to be a plan for that abandoned building, but can't say that there is at the moment.
Actually, this is Jessica. I think if I'm picturing the buildings in my head, I think they are owned by East Liberty Development Inc. and they are working on a redevelopment of those buildings. But I can do some further diligence with them and give a status update next month.
Great, thanks. Okay, anything else that the board wants to raise? Anything else from staff? Any good and welfare? If not, a motion to adjourn would be in order.
So move. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries and the meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
I think this is the fastest meeting of 2020. So we broke a record.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I know what happened.
Yeah.
Right. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.